Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video. In this video, I'll be starting a new series here where I talk about my top 10 players of all time. Obviously, people have been asking for this, mostly for Survivor and some for Big Brother, and I will eventually get around to those. But I decided to start off small here and start with Big Brother Canada. So the reason why I'm doing this now is obviously Big Brother Canada 8 will be starting around the time that this video eventually comes out. And also because both Survivor and International Survivor have all-star seasons going on right now, I do want to wait until those are finished before doing my rankings for those. And also, I felt like Big Brother Canada was more of a priority over Big Brother US due to obviously BBCAN 8. So here we are with the top 10 players of all time for Big Brother Canada. So obviously this is up to BBCAN 7. Now I guess I should define how I look at best player of all time. Now where my winner rankings, I've talked about this many times, I rank them based on dominance, as I feel like that's the most fair way to rank winners, as they all won the game. So it's a very fact-based way of ranking them based on what they actually did. Player ranking though is kind of the complete opposite. Here I actually rank them based on how I think they would do. Now people have mentioned this before, the fact oh, if they played 100 times, how many times would they win? That's essentially what I'm looking for here with my top player of all time. Let's just jump right into the honorable mentions. There's a lot here. To be honest, I did Big Brother Canada first also because I thought it would be the easiest one. It's not. There's a lot of good players. But I think unlike a lot of these other series where there's really top tier players, I feel like Big Brother Canada doesn't really have that. But let's go through the honorable mentions. So from BBCAN 1, some people I want to mention. Gary was someone that I considered. I think Gary is a much better player now than what he was in BBCAN 1. But I do think, obviously, him going out early in BBCAN 5, despite it mostly being due to him just not having the relationships with the past alumni, I do think that factored in there. Peter, I think, is someone with a lot of potential. Didn't really put him on. Jillian, I don't really think of her as a great player anyway, so didn't make the cut. From BBCAN 2, I considered Arlie and Kenny. Both of them didn't really make the cut. Aika is someone that I know a lot of people love. I just don't feel like she ever wins the game, and I feel like because of that, she didn't make the cut. From BBCAN 3, I considered Kevin and Bruno and even Zach and even Ashley. I think all of them are people who I could see doing well on multiple seasons. Obviously, Kevin already demonstrated that, though that was mostly due to comp wins. But then again, he pretty much broke the game of Big Brother Canada, but he was very close to making the list here, but I decided to leave him off. As again, it is still very reliant on competitions, which still can have some variance. BBCAN 4. BBCAN 4, I actually didn't put anyone from this season on the list. Some were very close. Tim was very close to making a list. I think the problem with him is that he essentially gave up at the final 3. I think that was a major factor there. Mitch is someone that if he had made it further into the season, probably would have been on the list, but again, got taken out mid-game. Cassandra is someone that I think is a very high variance player, where if she gets her footing, she could do very well, but more times than not, I don't think she gets her footing to begin with. Joel was a good player, but I think he blew up his game. The Pax Bros, obviously, come on. They're not making this list. BBCAN 5, I did consider Dimitri's obviously a very physical player, but someone that I don't feel like is guaranteed to do well every season he's on. Again, he was very close to being the first boot on that season, so I think that was a factor there. And for BBCAN 6, I did consider Kayla, but I feel like Kayla never wins that season. And I feel like there's actually arguments that Derek is a much better player than her. So I didn't put either of them on the list. So those are all the honorable mentions. Let's move on to the top 10. So at number 10, I have a player from Big Brother Canada 7, which, spoiler alert, BBCAN 7 actually has the most amount of players on this list. And right here at number 10, we have Adam Pike, the 4th place player on BBCAN 7. And for me, Adam was a tough one to get on the list, and it was really between him, Kevin, and Dimitri's for that number 10 spot. And I went with Adam because I feel like Adam showed the most amount of strategic acumen. With Dimitri, someone who is decent at the game strategically, but I do feel like, again, he was very close to going out early. Kevin, someone who had to very much rely on competitions at that end game without having that much strategy within that season that he won. But Adam, I feel like, is someone that demonstrated a lot of strategy during his season. I mean, he is someone that put together the Pretty Boys, that alliance that dominated that season. I mean, he was a physical beast. I mean, he was someone that came very close to tying Janelle's record of all-time comp wins if he had won those last 2 comps that he needed to get to the end of the game. I mean, he is someone that I do think has a lot of skill in the game. I think he is this big sort of leader of an alliance, but at the same time, he has the strategic and physical ability to back that up. He's not like an Andrew Gordon or like a Greg from BB-Can 3 who like are leaders of their alliance but don't have the physical ability to get themselves out of a sticky situation. Now, Adam did have flaws in his game though. I mean, obviously he had no one that would have taken him to the end. He would have had to win out. That's obviously a flaw. Mind you, he would have had to win out from a shorter distance than Kevin did, but still, again, he did need to win out if he wanted to win that game. But then again, he is also someone that automatically wins the game if he gets to the end. I mean, he beats everybody at the end of that game. I think that's a testament to both his physical game and also his social game in that season. People just respected Adam on that season, where I think if he got to the end, he wins in a unanimous vote. I mean, he is a very good player of Big Brother, and the main reason he's not higher is, again, I do feel like he lacks something positioning wise. I mean, he did form a final two with Dane, but not until midway through the game, and that was really his only final two the entire season. For him not to even be thinking about that earlier on in the game, I do think is a flaw in his game, and is a reason why he's so low on this list, but I do think there's enough skill there for him to be ranked here at number 10. Now at number 9, I have a player from BB-Can 6, and this one was another tough one to put on the list. I really didn't know if this player should be here, but I decided to put him on. I think there's going to be some debate on this one, and it is Johnny from BB-Can 6. And Johnny is someone I had a lot of respect for during the season. I mean, even though it wasn't on the TV show, he pretty much dominated the first half of that season, being the guy in the background that manipulated all the events that eventually occurred. I mean, we saw that in the double eviction, where he is the one to get Hamza out. I think he's also someone that was very good with jury management. He was very good with Ryan on his way out. I think the problem with him is that he blew up his game, and I think he talked a little bit too much. I think the word got back to Derek and Kayla that he was targeting them, obviously, and with Derek and Kayla being comp beasts, I mean, they essentially won out from that point on. That caused Johnny to be in a very bad position to where Johnny eventually gets taken out in the triple eviction. But again, that's a scenario where Derek and Kayla win comp after comp after comp. If that wasn't the case, I think Johnny would have had a much smoother road to the end of the game. And I think if he gets to the end of the game, I think he easily wins the game. And I mean, him saving himself at the final 9, I think is still one of the best moves in the history of Big Brother Canada. I mean, it's essentially a Dan's funeral moment where, and the level of skill that move took is very impressive to me, where he had to convince every side that he was with them. He had to convince Allie and Olivia that he was with them and that he was going to go eventually target the Paris side of things. He had to align with Paris and Will and Maddie through that and get them to think that he was eventually going to target Allie and Olivia. He eventually got Derek and Kayla on board as well, people who were his biggest enemies at the beginning of that week. It is a very impressive move that he was able to get Ryan out unanimously that week when he came into that week dead man walking. Again, not to say he's flawless. I mean, we are in the stage of Big Brother Canada where I don't think there are 10 like top tier players. So a lot of these first few players are people who do have massive flaws in their game. But I do think Johnny's game warranted him a spot here at number 9. Now at number 8, we have a player from BB-Can 3. We actually have 2 players from BB-Can 3, both in a row, the only 2 players that make the list. And I really love this player. It's the player I would have personally voted for in the final 2, and that is Godfrey. I think Godfrey is a great player of Big Brother. I think he's someone that really gets the strategic game. Like, while not strategically dominant through the game, he was someone that understand positioning. And I think one of the most impressive things that he was able to do is actively target Zach. And by targeting Zach, that allowed everyone to know that, oh, that guy's targeting Zach, so we can keep him in because he's not targeting us. I feel like that's a very innovative strategy that some people have utilized afterwards. He obviously positioned himself very well in the end game, where he was in the middle of 2 different pairs between Ashley and Pilar and Brittany and Sarah, to where obviously they were never going to target him at that point. He was pretty much guaranteed final 3, and from that point on, he obviously won the last few comps to get to the very end. I think obviously there are massive flaws with Godfrey though. Obviously he picked the wrong person. I mean, if he went to the end with Ashley, he wins the game. However, he picks Sarah, he loses 7-2. Also, I know a lot of people flaw him for him being saved by Cindy coming back into the game. Well, that's completely not true. I mean, if Cindy hadn't come back into the game, Zach was actually going to backdoor Bruno, which would have meant that Godfrey would have been saved anyway. Though, then again, Godfrey would have been in a much worse position at that point, considering Bruno was obviously one of his closest allies. I do feel like that's so far out there that you can't really flaw him for that. But something I will flaw him for is I think he is a high variance player. I think he's someone that's going to play super hard at the beginning. That's something that we've learned through post-game stuff, is that he was playing super hard that first week and almost became targeted because of it. I think he's also this guy that comes up with a lot of like really weird ideas. He had this idea of bringing in a wedding ring and planting it into a showmance's bag and then have the other member of the showmance find it to cause like an argument between them, which is like a completely ridiculous idea, but it is something that he actually thought about doing. And I just think Godfrey is a very innovative player. I don't think he's the best player in the world. That's why he's here at number 8. But I do think he has a lot of ability in the game. It's just that he's very high variance, so I couldn't put him any higher than number 8 here. Now at number 7, also from BBCan 3, I have a player that I've said many times I don't like her game, and that I think she should have lost the game. But she's still here, and that's Sarah from BBCan 3. And again, I think Sarah played a terrible winning game. I've said that many times. I think Godfrey should have won. However, I do think she's a very good player, Big Brother Canada. Again, just because someone's winning game didn't fully demonstrate their ability doesn't mean that I don't think that ability is actually there. I think she is someone that is very good socially. I think she's one of the best social players in Big Brother Canada history. I think she can be strategically competent. I think the biggest problem with Sarah is that she has had incorrect reads at points, and that caused her to make incorrect moves. I think a big example of that is the Willow move, where she votes out Willow thinking that there was a guys alliance when that just simply wasn't a thing, and instead she just ended up voting out one of her closest allies. And she is someone that's obviously saved multiple times through, not directly but indirectly, through twists and also through winning certain comps at certain points. But again, I think she's very good socially, competent strategically. She was someone that was able to convince Godfrey to take her to the end. I think that's very impressive as well. I just feel like she's a more consistent player. I feel like if you put Sarah on any season, I think she does well 99% of the time. Again, she has demonstrated that she can win. I think she's someone that if she gets to the end, she more than likely wins almost every time. Even though there was actually a scenario in BBCan 3 where she loses against Ashley, as against Ashley would have gotten Bruno and Bobby's votes plus the Diaper Alliance, which means Ashley wins. But whatever. I think Sarah is a very good player of Big Brother Canada. But again, I think she's probably the best player of that season, so she ranks here at number 7. Now at number 6, we have a player from BBCan 2, and kind of similar to BBCan 3, we actually have 2 players, the only 2 players on the list from BBCan 2 in a row here. And at number 6, I have Jon Pardy. And Jon Pardy is obviously the winner of that season. And I think he's another one that's just naturally good at the game. I think he's very good socially. He is very good physically. I think he has the ability to play strategically. I think he's someone that if you put him on any season, he's guaranteed to make it towards the end game every time. It's just a matter of, can he win out? And I don't know. I don't know if he's as skilled in competitions as someone like a Kevin Martin. Actually be able to do it every time like he did in BBCan 2. But obviously he's done it before. And I think he's someone that obviously had the strategic ability to realize that he would lose against Neda and be willing to cut Neda at the very end. But again, he's not without his flaws. I mean, he obviously having to win out is a flaw in itself, as it adds a lot of variance to the game where you can't be guaranteed on what kind of competitions are going to come up. Also, Jon was actually endangered during the Canada's HOH week. I mean, if one of the first 5 had won HOH that week, they were actually going to target Jon. Mind you, Jon wins the veto that week anyway, but still, that's not a great position to be at. But yeah, I just feel like Jon is someone who's just so good naturally at the game. And then plus now where he's obviously known the game a lot more, he's become a poker player as well. I do think he has a lot of ability in the game. So he lands here at number 6. Now number 5 is another player from BBCan 2. And I think this one might be a bit of a controversial decision. I think a lot of people that have this player have ranked very, very high. And obviously I have her ranked at number 5 here, and that's Neda. And I know after BBCan 2, a lot of people are talking about Neda as one of the best players of all time. And if I'm being honest, I never agreed with it. I think she's a very good player. I think she is definitely at the time one of the best BBCan players. But in terms of overall Big Brother, I don't really see it. I think she's someone that did play very well that season. I think she's someone that did strategically dominate the end game there. But I mean, if we're looking at the entire game as a whole, she was in the minority for a good chunk of that early game. Pretty much up until Canada's HOH, she was an underdog there. And then from that point on, with her alliance with Jon, Heather, and Adele, they were able to dominate that end game. She outsmarted Jon at the final 5, took out Adele, got Jon to keep her at the final 4, and then eventually gets taken out by Jon at the final 3. But again, I do think her game is very impressive. I do think she played a very strong game that season, and I think she's shown the ability in BB Can 5. While she didn't do nearly as well, I think the fact that she completely dominated that first half of the season there, I think is impressive as well. Obviously, the circumstances were a bit different there, to where she was the top dog that season coming into it. So I feel like she's a very high variance player as well. I feel like she's someone that needs to lay low at the beginning of the game and wait until the mid game to really turn it up. And obviously BB Can 5, she was kind of forced into that top dog position due to her being saved by Canada. But overall, I mean, I just feel like Neda is a very good player, Big Brother, and someone that I would say is a better player than Jon. Again, I think Neda is someone that can get to the end of the game, get a lot of strategic credit, can win the game, and probably wouldn't need to comp out at the very end. But I just don't know if she can do it consistently, so because of that, I have her ranked here at number 5. Now at number 4, I have the last player from BB Can 6, and that is the winner of BB Can 6, and that is Paris. I do think Paris is pretty much a better version of Neda. I think Paris is someone that has the strategic ability of Neda, but is just more likable socially. I feel like Neda was someone that was never like well integrated socially within either of her seasons. I mean, I guess you could say Neda like at the very end of the game, like where she had very good relationships with Heather and Sabrina by that point. But I mean, in BB Can 6, I mean, Paris was with everyone. I mean, Paris was friends with everyone at the beginning of the season. She was pretty much the center of the house at the very beginning of the season. Now, that does blow up once Jesse goes home. From that point on, she does kind of back away from Derek and Kayla and become more of a group with Will and Maddie. But she still had very good relationships with like Allie and Olivia and Johnny and Ryan especially. She's also someone that can win some mental comps when she needs to. She won those final 2 HOHs on her season. Now again, she's not a flawless player by any means, but I do think she's someone that I have a lot of faith in on her doing well on just any random season. I mean, she was my winner pick for that season, and I was correct. I just felt a natural ability to play the game from her, both from a social standpoint and a strategic standpoint, and I still have confidence in her now. Now again, she made some moves I wasn't a big fan of. I wasn't a big fan of her keeping Derek and Kayla right before that triple eviction, even though, again, it does turn out to work out for her, but I do think it was a very risky move odds-wise, but again, it works out for her, so whatever. But yeah, I just feel like she's one of the best social players in Big Brother Canada history. So because of that, she ranks here at number 4. Now at number 3, I have the only player from Big Brother Canada 1, and the player that before BB Can 7, spoiler alert for the top 2, I would have said is the best player in Big Brother Canada history, even though he's not a winner, and that is Emmett. I feel like Emmett is kind of underrated at this point. It's kind of weird how obviously at the time of BB Can 1, people talked about Emmett as a potential like all-time great player. But I feel like since then, a lot of that credit's gone to Neda, and I never really understood why. Obviously, Neda is more of an underdog, just a more likable presence. I just feel like Emmett played a much stronger game. I mean, Emmett completely dominated that season the entire way through. I mean, he was on the block that very first week due to like Suzette initially thinking he was a threat, but it's like he gets saved against Kat, like almost unanimously. Only Liza votes against him. And from that point on, he controls vote after vote after vote after vote. I mean, like, there's never a point that he lets go of the steering wheel from that point on. And a lot of that has to do with comp wins. I mean, he was obviously in a showmance with Jillian, who won comp after comp after comp. And even when she wasn't winning comps, he was winning comps. But still, he dominated that entire season. And not even just through physical competitions, though. He was also very good socially. He was in some sort of alliance with like almost every single person. And while like some people like Tala and Andrew had better relationships with Jillian than him, I mean, he had better relationships with almost everyone else. He had obviously a great relationship with Peter and Alec. He even convinces Peter to not use the veto on Topaz during that double eviction, which I think is a very impressive move. He had a great relationship with Gary, to the point where if Gary hadn't gotten a talking from Dan Giesling, more than likely Emmett gets taken to the end by Gary. Now, obviously he loses against Gary in that scenario, which I think is more so a flaw of just Gary coming back at the final 5 or final 4 really, which is completely ridiculous. But I think Emmett is a very good player. I mean, he also is able to take out Tala at the final 4, someone who would have taken Jillian to the end. And I know a lot of people talk about that as a bad move, which I mean in retrospect it is, obviously, considering what the final HOH was. But if we were looking at BBUS, it was the correct move. I mean, again, Tala is someone that could win in endurance competition against Jillian. And if Tala wins final HOH, she votes out Emmett. Emmett loses the game there. While he had a lot of confidence that Gary was going to take him to the end, which obviously didn't come true because of the stuff with Dan Giesling. But odds-wise, this was the best move for Emmett, even though it didn't end up working out. Again, I have a lot of confidence that he would be able to do it again on another season. I just feel like Emmett, he's up there with best players to never win a Big Brother season. And for this top 10 player ranking here for Big Brother Canada, he ranks here at number 3. Now at number 2, I already spoiled this already. The top 2 are from Big Brother Canada 7. It should be pretty obvious who they are. But at number 2 here, I have the runner-up of Big Brother Canada 7. I have Anthony Douglas. I think Anthony is just simply one of the best manipulators we've ever seen on Big Brother. I think he's someone that is so good with his words. And it's so funny looking back on it. Like, just all of his catchphrases, like, you're a Hall of Famer. It's so funny. He obviously had the pretty boys. He had a final 2 of Dane from the very beginning. He was able to get Corey to pretty much be in his pocket the entire way through. He was able to get Mark to do what he wanted. He pretty much got what he wanted the entire season, with the exception of the Corey vote out. And that was due to a twist. I mean, if Adam hadn't found the secret assassin power, then SD would have gone home that week and Anthony would have been in a much better spot coming into that final 7. But again, he never was in danger that entire way. He was never going to be voted out. He was never put on the block. He was someone that was able to dominate the game without ever winning a competition. And again, that's very rare for you to see. That being said, I do think he has some flaws. Obviously, he is not good at competitions. He doesn't even care about the mental competitions, which for like a winner ranking, if he had been a winner, like that wouldn't have really mattered. But I do think here with the player ranking, that does significantly decrease his odds of getting to the end every single time. But I think at the same time, he also needed a competition to prove to the jury that he was doing things. We've gotten to the point in Big Brother where competitions seem to be a major factor in a lot of people's perceptions of people's games. I feel like Anthony was not able to get his game across due to his lack of competition wins. I think a very similar thing of Godfrey as well, where because they didn't do competition wins, they were kind of perceived as doing nothing the entire way, when really, again, Anthony was in the background doing almost everything. And also, even though Anthony got 0 votes at the end, there was a scenario where he won the game. If Kira had won that final HOH, he wins. I mean, he wins, I believe, 6-1, right? Like, I think Sam is the only person to vote for Kira at that point. So it's not even like Anthony had no shot of winning the game. It's just he needed a very specific scenario. So again, Anthony's just a very good social player, especially during one-on-one conversations. He's a very good manipulator. He's one with a very good strategic mind for the game. So I think he ranks here at number 2. Now for number 1. Again, this should be obvious. I've talked about this player a lot already. It's Dane. I've said this before. I think Dane is one of the best players to ever play Big Brother. I think he's someone that is very good socially, strategically, and physically. I think out of anyone that's ever played Big Brother Canada, he's the one I have the most faith in doing well every single time he plays. Now, again, even Dane's not without his flaws, though. Even though he was a master at positioning to where he was never going home in any situation, I do think he actively ruined his positioning towards the end of the game, where he actively gets rid of some of his allies like Damien and Esty. And I do think in certain situations that could also cost him jury votes. Obviously, it didn't in this situation. But Dane is someone that I have enough confidence in strategically to make the moves that he needs to make when he needs to make them. He obviously cut Adam when he needed to. I mean, he won 5 HOHs. That's completely ridiculous. He even won, I believe, 2 or 3 vetoes. I mean, he is a very good physical player as well. He pulled off the move where he was able to convince Anthony to keep him at the final 5. He had the pretty boys. He had that alliance with Kiki, Esty, and Damien. I mean, he was very much in the middle of that house. And I feel like if he was on any random season, he could replicate that over and over and over again. So for me, I have the most confidence in Dane as a player. So he ranks number 1 on my best players of all time list here for Big Brother Canada. So there we go. Those are my top 10 players of all time for Big Brother Canada. And my plan for these top 10 player of all time videos is to, obviously this one's in March. I plan on doing the BBUS one for April, the International Survivor one for May, and then Survivor US for June. That's the current plan. Things might change, but we'll see how that goes. But those are my top 10 players of Big Brother Canada. Thank you for watching.